You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. Today, right in the teeth of war and the state of the world, we're going to talk about art. Specifically, women's art. Even more specifically, Indigenous women's art. This is all the more challenging because it's visual art we'll be discussing, but that's easy enough to go online and, as I'll mention later, view the works being talked about. And besides, my guests coming up are very, very articulate in discussing their work. This is the third in our sub-series of episodes on Native American women and Indigenous women in general, and these programs continue to be quite revelatory and very exciting. My guests today at a special roundtable on the subject are no exception. Furthermore, the subject opens up a conduit for discussing the way in which patriarchy has clamped down on the subject of art by women in general, to the detriment of female artists down through the ages. But no more. Anyway, before we get into any of that, we need to go inside the headlines. Because there's no way, really, to go inside any headlines regarding art, I thought I'd opt for context, particularly since there's a long tradition, alive today, of art by women, Indigenous women in particular, with profound implications and meaning. I sometimes refer to the differentiation that patriarchal critics make between so-called fine art and so-called crafts. Fine art, you understand, hangs in museums, is by white men, and although frequently brilliant or moving, doesn't do anything. So-called crafts, on the other hand, almost totally executed by female people, almost always have a purpose. They are textiles for wearing or slings for wrapping babies, woven baskets for lugging children or vegetables or tools, fired pottery for cooking and carrying liquids, and so forth. Yet they are also very beautiful. I've never understood why, if something has a useful purpose, but is still aesthetically most pleasing, it gets downgraded to being a craft, whereas if it hangs on the wall and does nothing, it's fine art. Perhaps purposelessness has a value I cannot somehow comprehend. Moreover, these so-called crafts by women, which have been present in virtually every culture on the face of the planet from time immemorial, have a political purpose as well. Much of that purpose did not surface until the birth of a women's movement globally and cross-culturally, as well as the existence of women historians ferreting out that purpose. Here are only a few examples. In Chile, during the long dictatorship, women restored their ancient tradition of arpilleras, carrying sacks and bags made of woven textiles embroidered with pictures, images of people going about their daily village lives in cheerful, sunny colors. Only the initiated understood what these images were doing and the depicted terrain on which they were doing it. This was code to the anti-dictatorship underground. Similarly, during the Intifada in Palestine-Israel, when the word Palestine and the colors of the Palestinian flag were outlawed, women's embroidery, intricate and sophisticated, dared to use those colors, cleverly interspersed amidst others, to embed the words for Palestine in Arabic and English in the embroidery, so it barely can be made out, but it can be made out. This cleverness even extends to large earthworks. In the Cordilleras, the mountainous region in the northern Philippines, women plant rice on flat, terraced land cut into the mountainsides. The rice is planted in patterns, whorls and triangles, and But during the Marcos regime, you could see from above or the side that clearly written in English are rice paddies spelling out the words revolution, rebel, change, and even love. In Mithila, a province of Bihar state in northeast India, it's the women and only the women who paint. They paint traditional tantric scenes, from the Ramayana, for instance, and they also illuminate letters with which unmarried girls propose marriage to the men of their choice. By the way, all of these societies happen to be matrilineal. Many of the images are explicitly erotic in Mithila, with an open yoni and an upright phallus, because of tantric concentration on sexual energy. This disturbed the British greatly during the British Raj because they felt it was debauchery. The paintings include those on mud walls, like picture books, from which one learns the ancient epics. One reason for survival of this ancient traditional art is, paradoxically, the impermanence of the materials. They're cheap, the climate is humid, and the walls or floors have to be repainted constantly. So mothers instruct their daughters, because only in this way can a continuance of knowledge of subject matter and technique both be ensured. And we need to look no further than our own American South and the extraordinary art executed by enslaved African women there. The great quilts that were collectively made at quilting bees by women, and, for that matter, the composition of lyrics to spirituals, all were encoded messages about freedom and getting to free territory. The quilts depicted actual maps, routes leading to the north disguised as simple, innocent village paths, or even as abstract zigzags. The same with Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, and other spirituals, which could be sung in black Christian churches without the plantation masters ever having a clue to their real meaning. The sheer ingeniousness of this, both aesthetically and politically, take your breath away. Whoever divorced art from use and meaning and reduced it to mere decoration should have a bit of explaining to do. But perhaps we're finally finding our way back in order to go forward. And now it's time for our first break. But don't go away, because I'll be back in just a moment with the conversation, which this week is women artists who are Native Americans. Way past time for such recognition, and these women have received it. Although, despite their distinguished status, they still are bridges between contemporary art and their own traditions, their own communities, and very moving because of it. So I'll return in just a moment with Nora Naranjo Morse, Theresa Secord, and Marie Watt, coming right up. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And now for the conversation, which this week is a round table. And the members at this round table are all Native American women visual artists, which makes this week a bit of a challenge because you can't see their work. But fortunately, their work is in major collections and museums and is viewable online. So, the first, the eldest, is Nora Naranjo Morse, who was born in 1953, which puts her in her late 60s, who is an artist and a poet. She currently lives in Española, New Mexico, just north of Santa Fe, and she is a member of the Santa Clara Pueblo. Her work can be found in several museum collections, including the Heard Museum in Phoenix, Arizona, the Minneapolis Institute of Art in Minnesota, and the National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C. Her daughter, Eliza, now works with her together as co-artists. I didn't know that when she first agreed to come on the program, and I would have had a mother and daughter dynasty here. She works in traditional and modern forms, and she does digital, she does video, and she does classic traditional form, clay. Her earliest sculpting work was made using clay, inspired by the ancient traditions of making Pueblo clowns. And in her later work, she made many commentaries about Indian stereotyping, as well as raising questions within her own community. Some of her most well-known installations include Sugared Up, A Waffle Garden, I've Been Bingoed by My Baby, a story of love, lust, and loss on the res, and A Pueblo Woman's Clothesline. Her earthwork project, Numbawage, is in the collection of the 1% for Art program of the city of Albuquerque. And her work, Our Homes Ourselves, is in the collection of the Minneapolis Institute of Art. It was featured in the Hearts of Our People, Native Women Artists. She's also shown at the Heard Museum, the Wheelwright Museum, the White House, and the Canadian Museum of Civilization. Theresa Secord, at 64, is the next in line. Born in 1958, she is an artist, a basket maker, a geologist, and an activist from Maine, a member of the Penobscot Nation, and the great-granddaughter of the well-known weaver Philomena Saulis Nelson. She co-founded and was the director of the Maine Indian Basket Makers Alliance in Bar Harbor, Maine. When apprenticing with basket maker Madeline Tomachet, Secord learned that she was one of the few young Wabanaki people who was taught to make brown ash and sweetgrass baskets. Her work has been shown at the Hudson Museum at the University of Maine, at the National Museum of the American Indian in New York, and the Southwest Museum of the American Indian in Los Angeles. She received the Prize for Women's Creativity in Rural Life from the Women's World Summit Foundation in 2003 for helping rural basket makers rise out of poverty, becoming the first U.S. citizen to receive the award. She was one of 5 award winners invited to present her work at the UN Commission on Human Rights in Geneva. In 2009, she received the Community Spirit Award from the First Peoples Fund and was a recipient of the 2016 National Heritage Fellowship awarded by the National Endowment for the Arts, which is the U.S. government's highest honor in the folk and traditional arts. And last but hardly least, the youngest is Marie Watt. In her mid-50s, born 1967, a contemporary artist living and working in Portland, Oregon, enrolled in the Seneca Nation of Indians, she has created work primarily with textile arts and community collaboration, centered on diverse Native American themes. She works primarily with blankets as a material in her installation and collaborative works. She also prints lithography. For her sculpture and installation, she uses a variety of materials, including everyday objects, as well as textiles, alabaster, slate, and corn husks. And she cites pop art, abstract expressionism, and indigenous visual traditions as sources for her work. In 2002, her stone sculpture, Pedestrian, was installed along the east bank of the Willamette River in Portland. Her work involving community efforts has been substantial. Her project, Blanket Stories, Transportation Object, Generous Ones, at the Tacoma Art Museum involved creating large-scale installations from blankets donated by the community. And she hosts sewing circles, groups who gather and work, such as with the piece Forget-Me-Not, Mothers and Sons, in which they constructed portraits of servicemen and women from Oregon killed in the Iraqi War. In 2011, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation commissioned her to produce a site-specific work for their Seattle campus. The work, entitled Blanket Stories, Matriarch, Guardian, and 7 Generations, is a 14-foot column of wool blankets from all over the world and is located in the building's lobby. Her works are both figurative and abstract, and her work is in the permanent collection of the Whitney and of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So, these 3 highly distinguished and honored and awarded winner women are here to discuss Native American art, which is only like dipping a toe in a vast ocean, but we'll make a start. So I welcome them. Nora, Theresa, and Marie, welcome. Welcome to Women's Media Center Live.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been quite an accomplishment getting all 3 of you at the same time. And I'm just going to plunge right in and start by asking you, as artists, as women, as Native Americans, how have you found the, how shall we say, hospitality factor of the patriarchal, white male, somewhat misogynist art world? Have you experienced any particular discrimination, or has it been a hard row to hoe? Has it been stereotyped? What's been your experience? Let's go alphabetical. Nora, why don't you start?
Well, I have a point of reference that I always return to, and that is when I grew up in northern New Mexico. My mother was a potter, and because I'm from the Pueblos of northern New Mexico, most of the Pueblo women are potters, and I have the history of seeing my mother collect the clay, process the clay, have a relationship with the clay, and then make vessels, utilitarian and also to sell.
Mm-hmm.
When my mother and I would go sell at a curio store or at a trading post, there was a real delineation. Once we walked into the trading post, there was a counter, mm-hmm. and on the other side was a curio shop owner.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother's demeanor changed. That's just in my brain, and it's a quick memory. Her demeanor would change from being this goddess of the household, running the home, cooking, and commandeering 12 people in the family, and then all of a sudden her body changed, her head bowed. She offered her pottery and slid it across this glass showcase, and the owner would pick it up, and though he never made pottery, he would start pinging it to see how it was fired, looking for
flaws,
imperfections, so that he could sell it for the bottom price, wholesale. And she never said anything, and this transaction was profound for me. And I think as I got older, I, of course, went back to that memory often, because I was in often similar situations where the process of commodifying in my case, my passion and my culture was something I've spent a lot of time thinking about. And it has really had a profound effect on me in what I choose to make and how I want to see these pieces in the world.
Wow. What a story. I can see her changing. Oh, God. Okay. What about you, Theresa?
I also come from a matrilineal society. This is in the basket weavers community in the Penobscot Nation in Maine. My great-grandmother expressed her sovereignty, I feel, and, through her economic self-sufficiency of selling her baskets. And I have this amazing photo, if I could show it, it would help that from 1953 of her selling this huge array of baskets on her table on Indian Island, the Penobscot Reservation in Maine. And when I went to work for my tribe as a geologist, I have this story where, I was working with a basket maker on the island as well to, pursue my own work. And at that time, late 1980s, early 1990s, I helped to found this organization called the Maine Indian Basket Makers Alliance, which was predominantly women, but also male, because the male contribute basket makers in helping us get the wood, particularly, and they also make these work baskets for hunting and fishing. And so I felt like this was, really well-respected traditional art form in our tribes, and that was all good. And I worked for 20 years with the basket makers and helped bring forward a new generation of basket makers today, which includes both men and women. But I remember when I was helping to write grants in the early days, I had interactions with the Maine Arts Commission, with a state arts agency. And at that time, I believe around 1995, I was also invited to sit on the Arts Commission in Portland, Maine, where they were having a meeting. And the reservations in Maine are about 150 miles north of the city of Portland, which is the largest city here in Maine. And that commission was made up of largely male, wealthy friends of the governor of the state.
Oh, dear.
And I didn't know this, but I know when I was invited to sit on the commission, but my first job was to explain literally to this largely male commission why they were sending grants up to basket makers in the Maine woods. Why were they sending funding up to Indians, largely women, in the northern woods of Maine? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a big job. And so things have changed very much since then, thankfully. But it's all been about education.
Yeah, it is. Profound ignorance out there. Just incredible. And Marie, what's been your experience?
I think there is a theme here, and that is that I guess I've had the advantage of being raised by and around women who lead in domestic spaces, in community and professional fields, and I attach this to our matrilineal traditions in Seneca society. So, my mom worked in Indian education for 27 years, and I saw how hard she worked to decolonize that space and libraries, and while simultaneously helping students and families who had been relocated as a result of federal policy into urban settings, kind of help create the entire web of social and community services that allow us to survive and thrive. Like, not just survive, actually. I kind of like to not use that word, but I think that that allow us to be resilient, that allow us to know our stories, and that allow us to come together. And so, well, I've definitely experienced obstacles to inclusion in patriarchal spaces. You know, I also see a shifting terrain, which includes more Indigenous curators like Heather Wattone, Candace Hopkins, and Kathleen Ash-Milby.
Yeah. Well, that's encouraging. I mean, something ought to have changed, or the last 60 years of my life has gone down the tubes, fighting for feminism. I mean, one hopes we've made a dent. Some days I think we haven't, but then again, you know, some days I think I'm sure we have. One of the things that I thought was so interesting about your work was that, well, first of all, it completely gives the lie to the bifurcated thinking that, you know, if men do it, it's fine art, and if women do it, it's crafts. I never understood why, if you can carry a baby in it, or vegetables, or make soup in it, and it also is beautiful, why that's a problem. Or if it can keep you warm, or if you can be buried in it, or, you know, I mean, it just didn't seem to parse for me as a woman artist, although my mode of work is words. But one of the things that I find so wonderful about the work that you do is that it is both, in different ways, activist and or collaborative with the community, and also it's just really big stuff. I mean, these are installations, they are earthworks, and I mean, Nora does earthworks. There are installations that Marie has done with blankets. There are installations that Theresa has done. I mean, the weaving that I had the honor of seeing in Aotearoa in New Zealand, that women do, was the first time I really ever encountered, ignorant as I was of my own cultures, that kind of incredible artistry. So if you would you address in different ways, whoever wants to go first, the largeness of this vision? It's not, you're not working in miniatures. You're not working in cameos, as it were. And I think the audacity of that is itself a statement.
I am thinking both about Nora's work and Theresa's work and my work. And I think a thread that kind of runs through it is there's this connection to land and nature and the environment. And I think that it's inescapable, almost not for me to want to have a conversation with that space or things that can envelop the senses of a viewer. And I think that can be an intimate experience, or it can be something that is ambitiously scaled. And I think that is something that's really important to me, especially engaging people's senses. So if that's through cedar or cloth, and how cloth can move with the breeze of one's body passing by it, or if that's jingles that start to make a sound, and even if they don't make a sound, just that sense that it could become activated by one's body or some other element. I think it's really, really important.
Oh, I think it's very important. Tell me about when you involve the community in creating artwork, like the large scale installations of blankets and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, most recently I collaborated with the Whitney Museum of American Art, and we invited the community to read a poem by Joy Harjo called Singing Everything. And after reading that poem, we invited people to really consider what they wanted to sing a song for now in this moment. And we invited people then to write their answer on a piece of paper, or they could paint it, they could draw it, but then to take a photo of it, and then those responses were collected and then interpreted. In my studio, they were kind of patterned in tape, but part of what I was really interested in is what happens in one's hand and how does that translate to one's body, and then the cadence of one's voice. And so what does it mean then to stitch these words in community? So it culminated in a sewing circle at the Whitney Museum of Art, where participants were as young as 3 to like, who knows, maybe in their 90s, but we stitched together over the course of 4 hours. There were over 300 participants. And what is made in that moment, though, is not a means to an end. It is the act of gathering, the act of exchanging stories. I have to share that some of my favorite contributors are not necessarily people who have sewing experience, and I think that there is an energy to the mark making and an expressive quality that is really important. And so what happens is there's in many ways it reminds me of jazz and improvisation and riffing off of one another.
Yes.
And there's all kinds of things that can happen.
God, it's so exciting. And the idea of there being sewing circles at the Whitney, than which there is almost no more male bastion that I can think of. I mean, the Guerrilla Girls, of course, who I'm sure you know, took on the Whitney full force many times, and they wouldn't budge. And they've just, they began to budge. But wow, I mean, just the idea of sewing circles there is so satisfying. Deep in the gut, it delights. It just gives me great delight. Who else wants to address the idea of collaborative work, or work that is not larger than life, but actually for once as large as life?
Go ahead, Nora.
Go ahead, Theresa.
I just wanted to say I was going to turn it to Nora anyway in terms of the large-scale installations. I've always admired her for that work. And but for me, I think in terms of large-scale, I'm going to go outside and just talk about the recognition of artists by First Peoples Fund and the direct support world, just in terms of large scale, because to date First Peoples Fund has supported like almost 500 fellows, I think, nationally, and 55% are women. And so this is huge. Nora and I are both First Peoples Fund fellows, and so I just wanted to put that in there to look at like a whole national scale in terms of support for this work too.
Oh, that's so important.
I think Nora's work.
That is so important, Theresa, because I know that you received a grant from First Peoples Fund, and I also know that you had a 2016 National Heritage Fellowship from the National Endowment for the Arts. But and Laurie Poirier was going to be on the program and then was unable to because she was going away for 2 weeks. But they do remarkable work, and the support for the actual emphasis on women artists is very unusual.
Exactly. Indigenous.
You don't find that a whole lot. But thank you for mentioning that. Go ahead, Nora. You were going to speak?
Well, I was just going to make the connection that Marie started with, that the land has, in my case especially, has it continues from the moment that we start learning how to gather our own clay in the mountains, processing it, and then creating things. And I think that process, that Pueblo cultural process of clay making, is huge because it places you at the foot of this clay, this earth, and that also begs a responsibility from that person, and that's what we were taught as Pueblo clay workers. And so that also taught me about integrity and this integrity of the creative process. And for me, that has always been very, very sacred. And I know that word gets thrown around quite a bit, but I know that that sacredness is what has kept me strong during these times when, when I proposed to the Smithsonian that I'd like to make 5 ephemeral sculptures right under the national capitol to express to the world that, yes, a little Pueblo woman can do this, and yes, they can be 18 feet high, and yes, they can include community and organic materials in a very concrete, metal, otherwise metal-oriented world where in the city. And so I wish I could show you a picture of Always Becoming, because it's been there and sort of been a representative. In somebody was mentioning New Zealand. There's a story that when I was in New Zealand, a Maori woman came up to me and she said she had gone to NMAI, Smithsonian, and she and her group were looking for a place to be able to pull themselves together before they went into the building and gave their presentation. Mm-hmm. So they went to Always Becoming. There they said their prayers. There they connected to the earth. There they felt their strength. And then they went into and did their presentation. But when I hear stories like that from places like New Zealand, I'm convinced that it's so large, this earth, in importance to not only Pueblo people, but Indigenous people all over, that it's that responsibility to make sure that this continues, that It becomes community, that our children know and understand these value systems about the land and ourselves in terms of ourself and place in this world. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about the community work, because when we were building Always Becoming, people did not want to be in the buildings. They were coming out and wanting to just sit and watch or sit and help. And, clay is so forgiving and so easy to work with that you could really tell it was a very, our audience was very intergenerational.
Ah, how beautiful.
And so that it's, it's these traditional art forms that we come from have so much to offer the world.
Nora is referring listeners to the National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C., where her hand-built sculpture piece, Always Becoming, was selected from over 55 or 60 entries submitted by Native artists, and it was selected as the winner of an outdoor sculpture competition. And it is quite remarkable, but you can access photos of it online. That shouldn't be that hard. And what you say about using clay, you have said elsewhere that you had created your own character named Pearline, inspired by ancient traditions of Pueblo clowns, and this character became so popular, commenting on. Via your commenting on Indian stereotypes, that then you were approached to commercialize it, but you decided that no, you had to honor the clay and you couldn't commercialize it. And
yeah.
No, go ahead. I mean,
well, yeah, that's right. And there's also something I'd like to mention about Always Becoming is when they selected me. That was the first time anybody in Washington, D.C. had ever selected a Native woman to have an art piece anywhere in the city. And so my thought was, why did it take so long?
Yeah.
Why did it happen so that there aren't more Native women representation in D.C. of all places? And with that, also, I also really want to say that to be able to have the honor to work with this clay means that when Pearline became a period where I decided, no, I don't want to commodify her, then I made one last piece. And that was important for me because it was my way of sending her off, and that was closure for that period that I had been working in that kind of figurative clay work. It was Pearline was monumental for me because she gave me the strength to think, to even believe that I could do something else, as long as I was true to the clay or to the creative process, and also to myself.
You just...
Could I say something?
Yeah,
Robin?
please, go ahead.
This is Theresa, and I just really applaud Nora for her work in literally breaking ground, right, in this representation piece and era, because now I'm fortunate to be sitting on a museum board of governors and a fine art museum at Colby College in Maine, and also a Portland Museum of Art in Portland, Maine, a trustee. And I'm trying to bring more opportunities through that work, for Indigenous art and artists. And I think, we're going to be working nationally with artists too as well. But even in those old New England museums, women representation is really low. So not just Indigenous women, but I just really want to applaud Nora and Marie as well for, their museum exhibition work and really being the ones out there communicating, with these museums and the importance of having us represented, in these national places like the Whitney and the NMAI.
There has not been much of a presence of Native American women anywhere, in anything. And so that the idea that there is this presence and it's emerging so strongly, it's emerging collaboratively. Oh my God, it's like a dream. It's what come true. And it's emerging across, it's a great bridge. I mean, it seems that sometimes younger people will tend more toward affirming traditions, whereas the older women artists, I'm thinking in other fields as well, will be trying to have been the path breakers. I mean, the pathfinders, and to break with tradition. But this is so exciting because you folks, you bridge it all. You do community collaboration, you do lithography, you do blankets, but Marie's in the permanent collection of the Met, but blankets. You're weavers, you're activists, you're doing earthworks, and you're doing digital and filmmaking. And there is nothing that you're not turning into some kind of wonderful art. And as an artist myself, I find that very moving. Listeners, you can go online and you can find works by Theresa Secord, by Nora Naranjo Morse, and by Eliza Naranjo Morse. I didn't know there was a daughter. I didn't know this was a family dynasty, Nora, or I would have asked her on as well. And by Marie Watt. And I'm deeply grateful to all of you. And I hope that whenever I'm in any part of the country where there is a museum where you are on exhibit, I will seek it out, and meanwhile, I'll find it online. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin.
We have to take our final break here, but I'll be back in just a moment with some fighting words. The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Women artists. Those can be fighting words. They don't have to be, of course, if the white patriarchal male establishment of the art world would loosen its grip on a high-priced market and on their galleries, collections, and museums. One of my cherished memories of my friend, the late Kate Millett, who was a sculptor and painter as well as a writer and feminist, was her making silk-screened images for affordable prints so that, in her words, everyone could be able to own a piece of real art. Art itself stands in a position analogous to that of women. As Michelle Roberts has written, women in art can be feared for the same reasons, because both seem to challenge common-sense notions of the way the world appears to be naturally oriented, and the power that rationality is supposed to have to order the world and make it a safe place to live in, safe and harmonious for those in power. Art, Robert goes on to say, has been classified as not theory, not science, and not true. Like women and like freedom, it's best defined by men by its negatives. Art is seen as subversive, and the woman artist doubly so. I do mean, when I speak about men, to make exceptions for individuals, naturally. That we've known a bit more about women writers than we do about their sisters isn't coincidental either. Composers require a form of collaboration to produce their art, musicians, an orchestra, an opera house, etc. Visual artists require costly materials. Women were largely barred access to the first area because the cooperation needed for performance was not forthcoming, and because performance is necessarily public. Women were mostly barred access to the visual arts, that is, the fine arts, because we have been for millennia an economically disadvantaged caste. We rarely have the means to buy materials. Many of the women visual artists now being discovered and unearthed turn out to have been the daughters, or, in some cases, the wives, mostly the daughters, of male artists who developed familiarity with materials in their fathers' studios and ateliers. Writing, on the other hand, is private and requires only a piece of paper and a pencil or pen, while publishing, of course, is a different matter altogether. Yet one steady cross-cultural theme of women's art down through the ages has been the beauty of humble things in all their thingness. The main theme has been one of transcendent utilitarianism. Yet another theme is the ephemeral quality of the work. It's not meant to be permanent. The sand paintings, for example, are constructed for healing ceremonies. The rice paintings are a celebration of religious ritual. Both are blown away afterward. Both are female wrought. And the point is in the being and the doing, not in the preserving for others to passively view. The tapestries were to insulate stone-walled castle rooms against cold, but they were also encoded to show esoteric references to Wiccan, Albigensian, and other heretical faiths in their iconography. Women seem to have got the message all along that art itself is one massive, eternal metaphor, and is therefore play, serious play, high play. And play, as the philosopher Suzanne K. Langer has asked, surely isn't that a basic need? This irrepressible capacity for creative play, this dogged, insatiable, tragicomic, wild, and disciplined need to delight oneself and others, to play. Those are my fighting words. Add yours on Twitter, and remember to tag us at WMC Live and to use the hashtag Fighting Words. And that's our show for this week. Senior advisor for this episode, Rebecca Adamson, Cherokee Nation, founder of First Peoples Worldwide, consulting editor, Betsy Theobald Richards, Cherokee Nation, Director of Cultural Strategies at the Opportunity Agenda. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and now Instagram at @TheRobinMorgan. And you can check out my blog at robinmorgan.net and find my latest book of poems, Dark Matter, and my brand new novel, Parallax, wherever books are sold. Opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the Women's Media Center. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer of this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us again next time on Women's Media Center Live.